It's now my pleasure to recognize Congressman John Duncan, who was presented the Champion of Science Award in 2004. And even though I'm not from Tennessee, it'll be my pleasure, although my accent might deceive you, but I did used to go to Oak Ridge National Lab a lot. But the Chancellor of the University of Tennessee said in 2004 that there is no one more deserving of this award than Congressman Duncan. He works tirelessly on our behalf in Washington and is an effective voice for science on Capitol Hill. He cited the Congressman's support for the National Safe Skies Alliance, the National Transportation Research Center, and the University of Tennessee's Imaging and Robotics program, all programs that continue to do fundamental research today, contributing to our safety and well-being. So please welcome Congressman Duncan.
Well, thank you very much, and I always appreciate being introduced. I presented a flag to the Rogers Creek Elementary School in my district a few years ago, and after I'd done that to all the children in front of the school, one of the kindergarten teachers asked me to stop by her class, and when I walked in, she said, "Now, boys and girls, do you remember who this is?" And I'd just spoken to him out in front of the school, and one little fellow raised his hand, and he said, "Are you the man on the nickel?" And so, I've always appreciated being introduced. And I will be very brief. I was about to speak to the First Baptist Church of Alcoa, Tennessee, in my district one year, and my youngest son, Zane, who was then 12 and a half, he leaned over and whispered very emphatically, he said, "Dad, when you get up to speak, speak for 3 minutes. Do not speak more than 3 minutes." And I whispered back and said, "Why, Zane?" And he said, "Because your speeches are boring." And I told that story to a Lions Cover Dish supper in Englewood, Tennessee, about 3 or 4 years later, and the little Cub Scout named Nick Angel, whose name I will never forget because of what he said to me, he came up and he surprised me. He said, "Mr. Duncan, your speech was good," and that part surprised me, but then he said, "Your son was right. It was boring, but it was short." So let me just say it's an honor for me to be here with several of my colleagues, and I do represent the University of Tennessee. Half the people who work at Oak Ridge live in my district, and so scientific research is a very, very big thing and very important thing, not only in my district but throughout the nation. And I can tell you that I'm very appreciative. I was very grateful to receive this award in 2004, and I've continued to throughout my years in the Congress, and this is now my 25th year, Ralph. You've been here a little longer than me, but the time passes so fast, it's just mind-boggling, but I've always supported scientific and medical research as much as I possibly could, and I thank you very, very much for repeating or giving me this continuing award. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So on behalf of Northwestern University, as well as the other major research universities in Illinois, the University of Chicago and the University of Illinois, I am honored to give this Champion of Science Award to Representative Randy Hultgren, who has been truly a great leader and advocate for science funding. In just a short time in Congress and under very tight budget constraints, Congressman Hultgren has made a maximum impact by being a strong and consistent voice for federal investments in science and innovation. Illinois, of course, is not only home to these major research universities, but two of our national labs, Argonne and Fermi. And so, in particular, the Department of Energy's Office of Science Funding is especially vital to the state of Illinois and, of course, to the entire nation. We also appreciate your leadership to reach out to other members of Congress and to educate them about the value of research universities, which in collaboration with industry provide a really unique ecosystem for innovation and economic growth. Congressman Hultgren, thanks for being here today and for all of your support of research.
Well, thank you. This really is such an honor. And for me, it's a privilege to be able to be someone here who is not a scientist, doesn't have the background, but just am passionate about this country and about innovation, and seeing how there is a direct tie when our nation has moved forward as far as being the leaders in innovation. It's also when we're most committed to science and basic scientific research. So these are challenging times, pivotal times, but it is so important for us to lock arms. So good to see so many of my heroes here who have done this fight for so long and been so effective. And I just want to continue that fight that they've begun and carry it forward, letting people know again how important this is, how much a part of who we are as a people is tied to science, and encouraging our young people that this is an incredible opportunity that they have. And if they're willing to do this work and do this study, there's going to be wonderful opportunities for them to innovate and discover right here in America. So thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing. And I hope to be able to work with you and see some great accomplishments together over the next years ahead. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Please join me in recognizing our champions for all that they do on behalf of our nation. I want to join my colleagues in commending this coalition and the Congress for its steadfast focus on scientific research and discovery. There is no doubt that if we are to continue the economic turnaround, it's going to require that our major research institutions in the country continue to engage in innovation and creativity, adding to economic growth and vitality. I have the great pleasure of serving as president of Washington State University. And out of the state of Washington, we had huge champions of science in this regard. Norm Dix is an example. George Nethercutt is yet a second example. And we have a number of emerging leaders all across our country. When we think about the economic return associated with our work and our activities, there is no doubt that the investment that has been made by this Congress and Congresses that preceded them is unabashedly clear. In our work and our engagement, the agricultural sector is an important aspect associated with our work and our activities. I have but to look at the tree fruit industry in the state of Washington, in which there is a $7 billion return associated with it, or the wine industry, in which we see a return of $9 billion. But we can go around this room and look at the states that are represented on your programs, and you could also talk about the return associated with the investment that has been made. There's no doubt that sequester is having huge challenges for our institution, and especially for those multi-year grants that many of you have received. So we need to continue to be very vigilant to make sure that we engage in the research and the scholarship and the creative activities and the innovation that will continue to catapult our institution forward. At the same time, we need to engage in very active conversations with members of Congress about the impact that further reductions will have on spurring economic growth and activity in our country. And we should never, ever forget the importance of basic research, for that serves as a foundation of all that we do within our research labs and the engagement that must and should occur in our country. So I'm deeply privileged to join others in commending this Congress and to recognize the champions for what they have done and what they will continue to do to advance science and technology within our colleges and universities. You have but to look on your program today. You see some of the best, some of the leading institutions in our country who are deeply committed to doing this. And there are others as well. And if we are to make a change relative to the investment that must and should occur in the STEM disciplines and provide those opportunities, we need to do that each and every day. One final note. When I was in high school, I knew exactly those individuals with whom I was competing. That's no longer the case. This is a global marketplace, it's a global economy. And we're going to have to continue to build the coalitions around the research and scholarship using the best and the excellence that occurs across our whole nation to then catapult the entire globe as it relates to scientific research and scholarship. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for your commitment.
Well, thank you, Elson and Bob. Now, you may wonder what all these others are. We were actually thinking of holding a raffle to cover some of our shortfalls in research, but really what they are is recognition to the large number of champions that are in Congress working tirelessly for us every day, and would like to recognize them. Most of them, unfortunately, were not able to be here. But as I read off the names, if they're staff members or others from their district or from their state, please feel free to come up and get a breakfast of champions. Senator Lamar Alexander, Senator Max Baucus, Congressman Ken Calvert, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, Senator Tom Harkin, Congressman Rush Holt, Congressman Steny Hoyer, Congressman Ron Kind, Senator Carl Levin, Congressman Ed Markey, Senator Barbara Mikulski, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, Congressman David Price, Senator Pat Roberts, Senator John Rockefeller, Congressman James Stensenbrenner, Congresswoman Louise Slaughter, Senator Mark Udall, Congressman Pete Visklowski, Congressman Frank Wolf, and Senator Ron Wyden. Let's thank them all once again. The weeders are going fast. Well, there's not much really more we can say about the importance of this, not only this morning, this activity and this recognition. I think all of us really understand the opportunities ahead, the challenges, the need to be able to continue to work together, those in the science community, those who are in academia, and those in Congress and their staff. It is a team sport. It's something that I know we will continue to work on. And before closing, I'd really like to recognize those that have made this breakfast possible, in particular Sue Garman-Cranius, who and miraculously we ended on time, so thank you all.